All right. Hello, all. I'm just checking my Facebook feed here on my phone to make sure that we're doing well and that I can see comments as they come in. Yes, it looks like my phone to make sure that we're doing well and that I can see comments as they come in. Yes, it looks like all right, well, you guys just heard myself there. So as people come in and comment, hopefully I'll be able to see your comments on the sideboard. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about how the law of attraction kind of relates to relationships. I'm going to get a little bit more organized about it probably in a future post, but this is really intended to be more of a relaxed kind of a fun live stream. I am a huge fan of Abraham Hicks. And in case you are unfamiliar with this particular, I don't know, area, New Age area of theology. So the story is that Jerry and Esther Hicks are just this cute couple, and they decide one day that they're going to try to meditate a little bit. And over time, Jerry comes to realize that his wife Esther starts like moving her head around like this. And he's like, what's going on? And then he realizes that she's spelling out letters with her nose. So he starts writing down, what is she spelling out with her nose? And they realize that there are these full-fledged messages coming through. And over time, they just become easier and they flow more readily, and they start typing them. And lo and behold, they've written tons of books and gone on workshops and tours. It's been years, and it's actually quite a huge following. Now, Jerry passed away, and so now Esther's she's kind of a channeler, so she does these workshops in which they are conversations between her and the participants in the audience. And so I'm actually going to see her speak in May, which I'm super excited about. But anyway, the personality that she channels is actually a collective personality which calls itself Abraham. And so all that has been channeled and comes through was actually the origins of the book The Secret, if any of you remember when The Secret came out. And the story of the book The Secret is that it was an Australian writer and producer who was familiar with Abraham Hicks and Esther and Jerry Hicks's work, and they wanted to create a documentary series about it. So they interviewed a lot of people. It was going to be a series, but the series was never picked up. So instead, they took all that information and they put it into a book. And if any of you know about it, it was a great sensation about, I'd say, 5 years ago, if not more so. And then they made a documentary about it. So you can still catch it on Netflix. It's called The Secret. At any rate, I have with me today a deck of cards. It's called Getting into the Vortex. And this is a deck that basically has like little snippets of wisdom from Abraham Hicks. And I thought today that I would just start with a brief overview of the laws of attraction, if you are interested. And then if anybody would like to have a card drawn for them, in the comments below, just say, me too, or I would like one. And even if you're watching this live stream after the fact, if you comment in the comments below, I'll post a card for you, okay? So I want to just start with just a brief overview of the 3 universal laws, and then we're going to get into a couple of cards to lay some wisdom on you. So the first one is the law of attraction, and most of us know about this one. And basically it's this notion that like attracts like, okay? So I've talked a little bit about this in the context of relationships in previous live streams where I talked about, is the anxious avoidant trap really a case of opposites attract, or like sees like, right? So this is kind of, law of attraction might be one way that you could think about it. I described it in terms of underlying psychological dynamic, but you could think of it in terms of law of attraction as well, right? And part of that is oftentimes when we want something so bad, right? We really want something. What vibration we're putting out is a vibration of lack, is of desperation, like wringing our hands, right? And what happens is that will call in more circumstances where you're going to end up wringing your hands. And part of it is that we don't have a lot of consciousness around the reasons that we want things. And so if you can kind of parcel out why you want that thing, then you can start to understand the source of your vibration. So for example, if you're afraid of being alone and you just want to be with this person's relation because you're afraid that you're going to end up alone, then you will always be attracting partners that leave you feeling alone. And because like attracts like, that's your vibration. Okay, but this leads us to the second universal law, which is that of co-creation. So basically, it's the science of deliberate creation, which means that my beliefs and my thoughts shape my reality. Okay, so a lot of us think, it's true, look at my life, this is the way it is, right? This is the way it is, and how can I pretend that it's something that it isn't? Okay, but the only reason anything is true is because at some point there was enough thought, energy, and focus put upon it, and there was enough agreement among individuals involved in the situation that it became true, right? So if you shift your focus and you don't allow that to be your truth, it ceases to be. And in fact, this is tied to the 3 laws of quantum physics, which I'll talk about in a different video, but they're very closely tied to the universal laws. And they've actually done studies that have shown that particles, electrons, the little particles that make up an atom, appear to change their behavior when they think that they're being watched. It almost appears as if particles know when they're being watched and their behavior alters as a result of it. They've done like scientific studies of this. I think that's so fascinating. So oftentimes we don't know like that what we're attracting into our lives is actually more of what we don't want, because we think if I want this thing, if I suffer enough for it, then I deserve it, right? Law of attraction doesn't work in terms of deservedness, and that's actually quite a blessing, because if you think about it, it's the only thing that allows you to really be in charge of your life. Because if you're always relying on someone else to make you happy, then you're always kind of at the mercy of things outside of yourself, right? And so that kind of brings me to the 3rd law, which is the law of allowance. So that you cannot be affected by someone else unless you allow it, and you allow others to be who and what they are without judgment or projection, basically. And that is when you actually step into a state of resonance. So oftentimes, we want to be a part of someone's happiness. We want to be the reason for someone's happiness, but that's a double-edged sword, because if you're the reason for someone's happiness, you're also the reason for their misery, the reason for their resentment, the reason for their bitterness. Right? And so in this desire of having a relationship puff up our own sense of self-importance, you're actually doing 2 things. You're absolving yourself of any kind of responsibility or authority for your own feelings, and you are disempowering your partner for being responsible for theirs. And it sounds very sterile and unromantic, but imagine if you are so in love with yourself, if you are so impassioned with life, if you are in such a great, high, joyous vibration, and your partner is too, and you say to your partner, you know what, my mood isn't going to depend on your mood, and I promise to always be in the state of loving joy and resonance within myself, no matter what you do. And I will always stand tall and strong and be in this place of alignment with my source energy so that we can both be in this joyous collaborative effort together, right? Then you're so much less susceptible to mind games, to holding each other emotionally hostage, right? And it's a different kind of high. You may think that's so boring, but you know what? That's actually quite a spiritual high if you can get into a state of resonance like that, right? So I want to pull some cards now, just to drop some wisdom on y'all. Anthony commented here, said he has to go. All right, but Anthony, I'm going to pull a card for you just for dropping a comment there in the feed. So let's see, what do we have here? Okay, so this one's for you, Anthony. The thoughts I think determine the relationship I attract. Okay, so this is what it says. Not only does the power of your thought determine which people make their way into your life, but it determines how they behave once they get there. You are a thinking, vibrating attractor of your experience, and the thoughts you think determine everything about the life that you live. As you turn your attention towards the positive aspects of the personalities and behaviors of others with whom you share your planet, You will train your point of attraction in the direction only of what you desire. So this is kind of a reinforcement of what I was talking about before, which is that through your focus, you can shift what's going on, right? And one way that's, I think, easier to do that is, for example, when you have, let's say you have a negative thought, and it's really hard to get out of that cyclical negative thinking, right? And it's really difficult to go from, having a negative thought to having a really positive one. And I don't recommend that you try to do that, because there have actually been studies that have shown when you try to recite a positive affirmation and you don't believe it, that actually creates doubt because you think it's not true. And so it's not the belief or the intention that you're vibrating with, it's the doubt that you're vibrating. And that's what's going to call in your experiences, right? So the best thing to do is to try to find the next good feeling or better feeling that provides some sense of relief. So if you're constantly having a negative thought, like, I don't know how to be in relationships, I'm so, I'm no good at this, or just like negative, like putting yourself down. One way we can generalize that is you have to think about your beliefs. So do you believe that you are connected to source energy? Do you believe that you have just as much of a right as anyone else to a relationship, regardless of what you think your capacities are? Do you believe that if you try hard at something, you could achieve it, right? Do you believe that if you were given specific action steps to follow, that you could follow them and allow yourself to be open enough to experience a change in your life, right? Or to notice a change in your life? And you can break that down even further. Like, in one day, can you write down 3 positive things that you observed happening either to you or in your surroundings, right? You can start off as small as that. But as you start to generalize your beliefs, you can also start to generalize your feelings. So from going from this feeling of negativity about the self to, well, I believe that I have a right to be here, and I believe that, let's say you do believe in God or some kind of source energy. I do believe that I am an aspect of all that is in source energy, and I am capable of feeling love. And you could end there, and that would be okay. It would be kind of a vague statement, but we could make it a little bit better. We could make it a little bit stronger and more robust, right? So let's say I believe that I am a part of all that is and an arm of source energy, and I'm capable of feeling tremendous amount of love for my cat, right? Because we are taking the pressure off of the thing that's beating you down, which is, I can't do this, I'm not good at relationships, I don't know how to make it work, I'm too needy, or I'm too distant, or whatever it is, whatever the narrative is that's running through your head, right? We need to shift that focus a little bit and be like, well, I know that I can love my cat unconditionally, right? And that's something soft, fuzzy, it's in your physical reality, it's something material that you can cling to and hold and experience and feel your heart expanding with love for your cat in a very real way, because it's true to you. So the longer that, the more that you can find ways to step into a truth that allows you to exist in that vibration for just like 10 to 15 minutes a day, over time, you start to stack those truths so that you're able to really take them in, right? So, okay. Katie's here. Katie would like a card. Let's pull up a card for Katie. All right. We have, I'll not ask others to become different for me. Ooh, this is a good one for this group. All right. Let your vibrational relationship escrow percolate and give it your undivided attention so that you become a vibrational match to it. And then, when the law of attraction brings all of it together, there are not any bugs to work out. Do not ask the person who helped you to define what you want to become what you want, so that you can have what you want. Instead, use your willpower to focus upon what you want, and then the universe will bring you what you want. Now, this is such a powerful card because I think it's really important, and I want to read this line again. Do not ask the person who helped you define what you want to become what you want so that you can have what you want. Instead, use your willpower to focus upon what you want, and then the universe will bring you what you want. Okay? So this happens, I'd say, more often than not when we get into these relationships where we want this person to be the one, right? We're really attached to them biologically, chemically, emotionally, physically, and we just want them to be the one because there's that connection there, and we want that to be it. But there's just something about it that isn't working out for you, and there's some little voice in the back of your head that's like, this isn't healthy, it's not exactly what I want. But there's kind of two narratives that go on there, and typically the open hearts or the more anxiously attached individuals are like, well, but look at all their potential. They could be, if I just stuck it out, maybe they'll change. I would never be able to do better than this anyway. If they leave me, they'll be the best partner for the next person they date, right? And then for someone who's more of a rolling stone or has more of an avoidant attachment style, it's kind of like, oh, I'll never be good enough for them anyway. They're better off without me. I'll never be able to give them what they want. And they kind of give up the fight before they feel like they can ruin it altogether, right? No harm, no foul. So basically, this is a case of realizing that if you're in a, I'm going to call it a place of contrast, right? Or if you are existing in a place of dissonance where what you want just isn't with this person, and you have this scratching, itchy feeling that that may be the case, but you're not really willing to let go of it, right? One way to kind of work with that is you try to shift your vibration to come in greater alignment with what you want, and don't abandon it, okay? So what it is even though it might feel like torture, it's actually a blessing, because what it's showing you is this point of contrast, to use the Esther and Abraham Hicks' language. It's a point of contrast that's helping you define even further what you do want. And the beautiful thing about that is once you know with greater clarity what you do want, A, you're much more likely to call it in. B, your capacity for happiness and joy and contentment and being in alignment with yourself is so much greater, right? And then you just feel better. You've got what you want, like what you really need. But if you're clinging to a relationship, even though it's not what you want, because you're afraid of something, then that is always going to feed your fear. You're always going to be attracting more fear. So if you can say, wow, what joy I have in knowing and experiencing now this clarity of what I really want to experience in my life. What a tremendous act that is, and thank you to this partner, because inadvertently you have actually brought me closer to myself. You have actually brought me into a greater sense of vibrational harmony with myself and in alignment with who I really am and what I know now I deserve and what I know now I'm willing to live with and what I'm not willing to live without, right? Even if it challenges me to be stronger in some areas in which I have a narrative about being weak, right? And this is a blessing, because essentially your soul has called in an experience to show you how brave you can really be. And the only way you can really know that is to witness it for yourself, okay? And that is not accepting what you don't want, right? So we've got a little bit more time here. Does anybody want me to pull a card for them? I have all of my Vortex cards here. You can just comment in the feed below, me too, or I want one, or something like that, and I'll pull a wisdom card for you. I'll pull one more here. Here's another one. This is a good one for this crowd. I can attract relationships that agree with my desires. So I'll read this one, and then I'll pull one for Lita. I hope I'm saying your name right, Lita. Lita Leanne. So this one says, people are not finding it difficult to find the mate of their dreams because that person is not out there, but because of their own contradiction to their own desire and the thoughts they offer about the subject every day. So when you consistently offer thoughts about your future relationship that feel good while you think them, that means you are consistently matching the desires that you have discovered as you lived life. Under those conditions, only someone in agreement with your desires could come to you. So this is kind of another illustration of what I was just talking about, but I'll illustrate this with another story. So I was just listening to an Abraham and a Hicks conversation the other day, and this woman came up and she said, I'm just wondering, where is he? I've been doing all the work. I've been, working on myself and it's been years, and where is he already? I'm ready for this relationship. And basically what comes about is if you're asking the question, then you're not quite in the state of resonance yet, because you're still focusing on the lack of the thing, right? You're still focusing on the he's not here yet, he's not here yet, he's not here yet. So your mind is still in the place of I don't have. And so to bring yourself into a state of having is actually to kind of marry yourself. So this might be specifically for heterosexual individuals, but this is my own personal example. I happen to be a heterosexual cisgendered woman. In my own example, the best way that I've been able to grapple with this is I have these kind of aspects of myself that I have assigned kind of a masculine or a feminine traits. And that's just in my own configuration. They're not necessarily like stereotypical for everyone, but this is in my experience how I've assigned these sort of aspects of myself. So there are moments where I feel like my masculine energy comes out, and then there are moments where I feel like my feminine energy comes out. And I have a certain relationship to both of these aspects of myself, and they both have a light and dark side to them. And so for me to be willing to feel like full and not focusing on the lack of a relationship, but rather on the fullness of who I am and where I am in my life right now and the successes that I've had and how delicious it is to just be here on this call talking to all of you, regardless of whether we're partnered or not, right? Because we're all one anyway, like focusing on that deliciousness. For me, I kind of imagine that I have a husband and wife inside of me, and they're always having a conversation. And if I feel myself in a state of dissonance or contrast or feeling lonely or feeling like woe is me when it comes to love or attention or whatever, I check in with them and I imagine them on like their thrones. And I just think, what is the conversation they're having right now? Like if I were to just like peek into their boudoir, what are they arguing about right now that I'm feeling this sense of lack? Right? And then once I know, I can step in and I can assume one aspect or the other to satisfy my internal wife or my internal husband, right? Because once you step into that state of fullness, that's when you raise your vibration to the level of the partner that you want to call in. And so the story I was telling you about, this woman who was asking about the partner that she wants so badly, one of the exercises that they did was to have her describe what does it feel like to be in that relationship. So rather than focusing on the lack of it, what does it feel like to be there? Like, it feels amazing. It feels like we're really connected. There's such great conversation. We really spend time with each other. Like, it feels like a sense of resonance and excitement and, focusing on the feelings of those things. And this was the funny part. So she says, oh, and he's so supportive of me. And at this point, Abraham says, oh, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know what all this is. He's so supportive of me, because that's not what you have in your vortex, right? In your vibrational escrow, in your dream of what you want for a partner. That's not what you want. You've called in someone who's independent, self-sufficient, and whole within themselves. Not someone who's going to bolster you up and puff you up, right? So if that's what you find attractive, if that's that challenge or that edge that you think you're looking for in a partner, then you got to rise to that. Then you have to rise to that, right? And then once you rise to that, you are a match for that partner. All right, so we've got Lita and then we've got Cassandra. All right, Lita. Okay, this is one. My relationships are supposed to feel good. All right. Your life is supposed to feel good to you. Before your birth, you knew that the primary component of your physical experience that would offer the greatest value for your personal and collective expansion and joy would be the relationships that you would experience with each other. It was your plan to relish the diversity of your relationships and to choose from them the details that would make up your creations. And here you are. And that kind of goes back to what we said about contrast, right? The ability, like the more experiences of contrast that you have, like, and when I say contrast, like desire and don't immediately have, perhaps, and there's a benefit to that, right? That creates a contrast, it creates a dissonance, and that dissonance allows you to understand, oh, so I want to move more in this direction. And every time you have that kind of aha moment, you know yourself better. right? And once you know yourself better, you can honor yourself more. And once you honor yourself more, you can be a greater authority of your life. And then you start manifesting all kinds of shit that you want. Not just relationships, but that's certainly probably one of the biggest and best things, right? All right. We have Cassandra. Okay. My attention to things. Okay. By my attention to things, I am making choices. Okay. So this one says, what people do not understand is that you do not choose something by looking at it and shouting, yes, I would like some of that. You make your choices by your attention to things. In this universe, that's based on attraction. When you look at an unwanted thing, your attention to it causes an activation of the vibration within you. And then the law of attraction brings more like it into your experience. Okay. So basically, this kind of reinforces what I just said, which was that if you feel a sense of lack, or if you feel a sense of like, like things aren't what I want them to be, they're not what I thought they would turn out to be, right? If you are focusing on that feeling, you're missing the point. Like that feeling is supposed to be like a, okay. That means I need to move in that direction, right? But if you're like, if you see the feeling and you step into it like quicksand, rather than being like, oh, okay, I get it. All right, yep, thanks for the message. Let's shift our focus over here, right? If you just step into it like quicksand and you let it take you over, then you have to realize that is a choice that you're making. Right? Because I know like sometimes people say, oh, I'm so miserable. I'm so unhappy. I would never choose this for myself. I would never want my partner to treat me this way. But the fact is you did choose that partner. And that partner does treat you that way. And if you've allowed it to go on for as long as you have, that means you've made a series of choices that led you up until that point. And if you're not letting it go, then that's another choice too, right? So that's an interesting card. But the things that you focus on are definitely choices that you make. We have Yvette. Hi, Yvette. Sure, let's pull Yvette a card. Let's shuffle them up a little bit. All right. Okay, let's see what we've got here. The essence of my every desire can be fulfilled. This one's for Yvette. If your time-space reality has the wherewithal to inspire a desire within you, it is our absolute promise to you that your time-space reality has the ability to deliver in full manifested form the reality of the desire it has inspired, not expired. The essence of any and all desires can be fulfilled unless you are holding yourself out of alignment with your own desire. The feeling of competition or shortage or limitation of resources means you are out of alignment with your own desire. I like this one, and this actually brings to mind a point that I want to make, which is that we often have this perception that that in order to be at peace with ourselves, in order to be calm or in a state of harmony with our soul, our spirit, or whatnot, or to call in the partner that we want, we have to be in this state of balance already, right? That we and as an extension of that, oh, you're welcome, Cassandra. As an extension of that, we can't desire things. Like, I'm not going to need anything because to need something is to suffer the want of it, right? I'm not going to want anything because then that is to suffer the lack of it. Right. And so we try to bury our neediness, what we call neediness, right? So we bury the things that we want, or we compromise so much that we're bent over backwards, or we cut ourselves off from our needs and desires altogether because we're convinced that the only thing we'll ever experience is the want of and the lack of those things. But Source does not want you to give up desire. You do not have to be detached to be spiritually elevated, ascended, or enlightened. Source wants you to live in desire. Source wants you to experience this contrast. How else are you going to fall into greater alignment with who and what you are? Right? But what Source wants is for you to be in alignment with your desire and then to be quiet enough to allow, right? Remember our third law? To be quiet enough to allow it to be, to receive it. And then to once you have achieved that alignment and to receive the wisdom that comes with it, then to take inspired action and move towards, maybe move towards that desire, but probably it would be more accurate to say, once you take inspired action, what you want starts moving towards you. I use this a lot as a metaphor in my business, and I have a coaching program for our therapists, coaches, and healers, and I teach them how to build their businesses online, and we use a lot of it, law of attraction stuff. And so part of it is that you don't want to release your desire, you just want to release the contrast and the friction between you and your desire. Okay, and you want to allow it to be inspired action. So if you're just doing something because someone told you to do it, or if you're just asking, like, how do I fix this problem? How do I make this relationship work? How do I make this partner do what I want them to do? How do I make them feel and give me what I want to feel and receive in a relationship? You're doing for the sake of doing. Because if you're already feeling that dissonance, you know you've hit that patch of quicksand. You're just not changing direction. You've stepped right in it. And so you're just doing for the sake of doing. And it's kind of like the harder you try to get out, the more it's going to suck you down. Okay? But if you can find that moment of stillness, if you can connect in with yourself and your resonance and find a place where you can quiet the hand wringing, okay? Then it comes to you. And then the actions that come subsequent to that are inspired action. And when you are operating from a place of inspired action, that is when the things you want start to move towards you. Okay? And so, like, you might say that requires detachment, but in this case, we're talking about the third eye stuff again. We're talking about releasing the illusion that whatever it is that you desire has to come in a very specific form. There's a fable, a yogi goes to a master and he says, I want to be spiritually enlightened. And so the yogi says, well, in that case, you need to walk away from your wife and your children and give up all of your worldly obligations and responsibilities. And so the yogi says, okay, it's done. Now, that's not enlightenment. That's just a transference of attachment. He's attached to a notion of what it looks like to be enlightened. You may be attached to a notion of what it looks like to be in love. You may be attached to a notion of what it looks like to be in a relationship. But it's a transference of attachment. Okay, so like the more enlightened thing to say in that moment, actually the more spiritually ascended thing to say in that moment would be, wow, okay, well, you know, I do have obligations and I love my family and those are things that I need to see through right now. But you know what? I'll come back when the time is right. Because we have those attachments in our lives to teach us lessons, to experience contrast, which put us into a greater alignment with who and what we are, because it allows us to understand with discernment the things we really desire, not the things that we want out of fear, not the things that we scramble around trying to hold on to and to stuff into ourselves as much as humanly possible because we're terrified that we're going to be left empty, right? So I hope that we're at the end of our time here, but I hope that you've enjoyed this live stream. It's the first time doing something like this, and I thought we might have a little fun with it. And if you are watching this on a replay, feel free to request a card in the feed below, and I will post one for you, at least within the next 24 hours. Otherwise, I could be posting forever. But I hope you have a great night. Thank you, everybody, for coming and for commenting. And if you enjoyed this, let me know in the comments below. We can do something like this again, maybe next time with an angel card deck. Have a great night.